You are on the rant couch where I rant about whatever my $15 a month plus patrons want me to rant about. You can get one of these by being one of those. This one is from Mani, who says, rant about Clusterpunk, what it means, where it came from, etc. It came from me! It's my personal fashion aesthetic, possibly also a brand, possibly a magazine that I might make. But Clusterpunk, it has its origins in the word clusterfuck, and the idea of the different types of punk that exist, like steampunk, cyberpunk, etc. The idea of clusterpunk is that it's just a mishmash of over the top, discordant aesthetics that end up working because they are so chaotic. And maybe have some element of color theory underlying them, but like generally it's like when you've got so many different things going on that just the massive amount of information creates its own style. So clusterpunk came from me describing myself as clusterpunk because I used to always wear, I mean I still do, wear like, say Ninja Turtle pajama pants and then like some kind of bright yellow shirt and then like sunglasses and a fucking coat and just like this combination of so many different colors and like totally divergent pieces of clothing that strangely would coalesce into something that kind of made sense. It's like even though it's garish and abrasive, it somehow works. And it wasn't always like that, but it's like at some point I developed a kind of sense for it, an eye for what things would interestingly combine. So I was calling my own style clusterpunk, and then I think Ben Saint had like a certain kind of outfit that I considered clusterpunk, and the person who kind of ran with it the most was Munchie, who was the most excited at the idea of clusterpunk as an aesthetic. Since he himself is known to walk around in like a pizza onesie and a fucking hamburger backpack, like, it's like just cramming patterns, colors, everything in. And another person who I think is like perhaps the god of all clusterpunk is Andrew Hussey. There's one picture of like when Munchie met Andrew Hussey, and he's wearing this shirt that it's like a long sleeve shirt, but each arm is like patchworked of different patterns, and like the whole outfit was just a dizzying array of space and color. Spaces and literally outer space. So that was wild, and like I want to make more clothes like that. Like I really want to get into the idea of clusterpunk being like a fashion, not necessarily brand, but like style that like I will create a clusterpunk aesthetic, create some clothes that truly like explain, as well as like other projects. And like it's kind of the underlying theory behind things like my current poster wall, where like I used to have just all my walls covered in posters, but then eventually I realized that I could like make it more dense and have more shit going on by making my own posters out of other posters. So like the current backdrop I use, where it's these. I took these giant poster boards and just like cut out a bunch of stuff from magazines and glued it all together and made this collage. And what gives it some visual cohesion is that I created a rainbow out of it. Each poster board is based on one color, but it's not completely unified in that color. There's other stuff in there. It's just like it generally has that color. So yeah, that's the overall basis of clusterpunk. It's like there's some thread of logic, but it's basically cram as much shit in as humanly possible.